Hey everybody, it's Bandana Gamer here in my car getting ready to go to Estarland's Gamer Exchange Games and Art Bazaar. I'm going to meet up with HGR, Hidden Game Room, and we're going to see what we can pick up today. Let's get to it. So here I am, the Bandana Gamer. I have just wrapped up my experience at Gamer Exchange, and of course, I've locked my keys in my car. Luckily, if we come around here to the front, I won a snack pack in the raffle, so I have sustenance to wait for AAA to come and get me. I will now wrap this up with what. So that was a little bit of my experience at Estarland's Gamer Exchange Art and Games Bazaar. I apologize for the camera being a little shaky. I just got an action camera that I'm using, and it clearly doesn't have any stabilization, but I got it just to play around with and see if I wanted to invest in a better one later on down the road. But I think it worked out okay. So once again, just apologizing for the shakiness of the video. But let's get into some of our pickups. Now, they had a range of vendors, and they were selling things themselves. And so wanted to go through what I first got at the vendors. And the first thing is that I got was not actually games, but stuff that, you know, if you've watched this channel and you know me, things I really like to pick up and collect, and that is Power Ranger toys. So I picked up an 8-inch original Kimberly Pink Ranger figure because I don't have any of the female Power Ranger toys. Female 8-inch Power Ranger toys. So I got the original Kimberly in box, and he was selling it because the box is kind of beat up fairly cheap. And like I just said, to go along with Kimberly, I got the Karate Action Trini. She does a really cool karate chop motion. Also one of the 8 inches. So that means I have an 8-inch figure for each of the original Power Rangers. Now I just got to focus on getting shields for the White and Green Ranger. But really glad to have these in the collection. They will look really nicely with the rest of my Power Ranger stuff. So, let's get into games. I'm going to first start off with what I bought from actually Estarland themselves. One of my favorite things that Estarland does is they have a section in the back of their store that they open up on weekends that has games that have damaged labels or a little bit of discoloration on the cartridge. You know, things that they really don't feel comfortable selling as an internet store. But you can come in and see, look what they have, look at how badly damaged it is, and they sell it at a fairly good discount. And so I picked up a couple of games from that section. So that was that case that, if you saw in the video, the case filled with games. I picked up 3 Game Boy games. I picked up Tiny Toons Babs' Big Break, which I played through this on Monday, excuse me. I played through this on Monday. Had a really good time playing through it. Had a lot of fun with it. It is a really annoying title because it says Babs' Big Break, but Buster, Hampton, and Plucky are the characters you play as. Babs is gone off to Hollywood and you're chasing after her to prevent Montana Max from hurting her. Really frustrating title because there isn't a Tiny Toons game where Babs is the main star, and she was equally as important as Buster on the show. There should have been one game where she was the star. I also picked up for Game Boy with fairly discolored label, but okay, whoops. I'm going to throw it everywhere.
I picked up Dragon Warriors Monsters for Game Boy Color. It used to belong to Alex, as you can see. I may try to replace the label. I may not. I don't know. But I like picking up Dragon Warrior games and Dragon Quest games. So glad to have that. And going with the theme I just showed you, I picked up Power Rangers, the movie for Game Boy. You can clearly see the label's got some damage to it, but you can still see the Ranger on the cover. You still know what the game is. That's another one. I may or may not replace the label, but it was a fairly cheap game, and I think that knocks out all the Power Rangers on the Game Boy games. I'll have to make sure. And, of course, I picked up one Super Nintendo, and keeping with the Power Rangers theme, Power Rangers Zeo Battle Racers, probably the weakest link on the Super Nintendo in terms of Power Ranger games. You know, because it was that time, that episode where King Mondo challenged the Rangers to a battle race like Mario Kart. It makes all the sense in the world. But graphics are really good, and it's a Power Ranger game, and I love me some Power Rangers. So, going to what I picked up from vendors. First thing I picked up from one of the vendors, video game wise, is Wizard of Oz for the Super Nintendo. I have no knowledge about this game whatsoever. My wife, the one and only Reverend Dr. Batgirl, has gone to a theme park meetup. There used to be a theme park in South Carolina, I believe, or North Carolina, called the Land of Oz, and they do meetups at the park. The park doesn't continuously operate anymore, but they do open up the park once or twice a year and let people go through. And so my wife has some pretty fond memories of that. And I thought it was worth checking out the game to go along with those experiences. I got one that it's going to be kind of surprising that I don't have, because it is one of the like big Hallmark titles, especially on the NES. And that is the original Contra. I do have Super C. I am terrible at these games, but it's cool to have it in the collection because it is just a title that you must own. So I picked up Contra, I was really glad, and Contra was in really good shape, so I'm glad to have that. A good buddy of mine had an amazing Facebook find, Facebook Marketplace find. He found a bunch of Nintendo games in box for cheap, and there were some special stories about those. I might save those for another time, or figure out a way for him to tell you about them. But one of the games he picked up in box got me thinking about not having a certain game in my collection and wanting to add it. And for the lovely price of $3, I picked up Golf on the NES. I really love Golf on the Game Boy, and fairly similar game, but it's one of the original Black Label kind of launch era titles for the NES. Glad to have it. Then I moved on to some of the modern consoles. I am a fairly big wrestling fan, and so I've been on an Ultimate Warrior kick lately. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about Ultimate Warrior and, debating about his impact on the industry and whatnot. But one of the games I picked up, WWE All-Stars, which I think might have been the first appearance of Warrior in a video game in a long, long time. I'll have to verify that, but I know this came out before he signed the deal to come back as an ambassador talent right before he died. But this game is ridiculous. They're all super jacked up, except the Warrior actually looks very realistic for the Warrior, but the moves are exaggerated. But the controls, I really, really love the controls of this game. A little more tweaks and polishes, especially on the AI front. They could, simplify the graphics, and this should have been the engine they used for THQ games in this era of wrestling. This is actually, to me, a really, really fun wrestling game that kind of makes me think of No Mercy in the THQ N64 games. Not saying it's as good as those. It's nowhere near as good as those, but it's one of the better THQ wrestling games, in my opinion, in that era, the Xbox 360 era. And the final game I picked up to check off my Wii U list, I picked up a sealed copy of Resident Evil Revelations. That is one more off the Wii U list, and that's, nothing fancy about it. It was a fairly good price. I think I paid about $10 for it, sealed up, so can't argue with that. All in all, I had a great time. It was a little crowded for my taste, but Estarland is a really cool company. The staff there is super nice. And I want to give a very big shout out to one of the cashiers who lent me his cell phone when I locked my keys out of my car, and I locked my cell phone in the car. And so I was trying to figure out, I'm about an hour away from home, how I was going to get things situated. But he was a really cool guy about it. Lent me his cell phone, let me call AAA, and then let me call my wife to tell her, hey, I'm going to be far later than I anticipated. AAA was great. They got me in my car. But the Gamers Exchange was a fun event. The raffles were fun. That snack pack came in handy because I hadn't eaten lunch that day. So while I was waiting for AAA, I had some fun little Japanese candies to chew and munch on. Really enjoyed the pickups. It was great. I got to meet up with HGR, Hidden Game Room, and I believe his hands make an appearance in some of the footage you just saw. Well, let me know about any small swap meets or things you've gone to in the past and what pickups you've gotten at these kind of events. Let me know if you like this video by hitting that like button and giving me a subscribe. Well, I will catch you in the next one, my friends. Peace.